Mickey Van in charge of this one. Good luck with that, because it suddenly got very, very real and very personal in that ring. And the smiles are gone. Look at the face on Fitzgerald there, just glowering at O'Sullivan. And O'Sullivan glowering straight back at him. Scheduled for 10. Anything could happen. And off we go. They are loading up right from the start. O'Sullivan just teeing off, dropping the hands. Bit of taunting, showing his confidence. Look how low the hands are, though, from O'Sullivan.
Well, O'Sullivan made a point before the introductions. Maybe it was a good point to make, but I don't like the way he did that, and he's making a second point now. He's landed solid shots straight away. He's bringing them up from his thighs, and Fitzgerald doesn't see them coming. A real solid left hand there landed. But I think he wants to show Fitzgerald that he's not bothered whatsoever about the power he possesses.
Oh,
and
nice
uppercut.
Absolutely nailed Fitzgerald there. Remember, it's O'Sullivan that's carrying that extra weight. And it's counted there. Right hand. Flattened Fitzgerald, who's going to struggle to beat this count. He's all over the place. He's absolutely gone. And O'Sullivan is celebrating a first-round stoppage. Explosive. Fitzgerald has no idea where he is. The legs have gone. That extra power we talked about it, Jim. Just look at what it's done to Fitzgerald. O'Sullivan has just wiped him out. There was a warning there earlier. He didn't heed it, and he got him with the second one.
Well, as the first bell sounded, Gary O'Sullivan came out into the centre of the ring, looking at a man who just thought he was in a different class to his opponent, and he pretty much proved that it wasn't a lucky punch, because he had landed at least 3 solid punches, in particular a solid left uppercut, which he brought up from his hip. So good, we're seeing the sportsmanship now, which we're always pleased to see. But O'Sullivan came in like a man on a mission, and that was mission accomplished in record time. A big shock. I really looked upon this as the fight of the night, possibly tonight. 10 torrid rounds, but first round stoppage, terrific from Gary O'Sullivan.
Well, the warnings had been there. He kept his hands low and just fired them up. Hurtful looking punches.
His body language just suggested that he had nothing at all to worry about that Anthony Fitzgerald possessed. Put his hands down, didn't think about defence, and just let full power shots go. Every punch he threw was a finisher, and that one landed bang on the button. He'd already landed a couple of big shots before then, and the way he walked back to his corner, then midway through the count, he walked across to the other neutral corner, waved to the crowd, because he knew, as everyone did, this fight was over. Beautiful punch. So maybe caught cold is the term we sometimes use. But I mean, he was caught a couple of times before the finisher, but there was no way he was coming back from that one.
I mean, it was a gem, wasn't it? Look at this. Loading up. Fitzgerald didn't even see it coming. You alluded to that anyway. The hands so low, Fitzgerald couldn't see where those punches were coming from. And O'Sullivan knew, the rest of us knew, it was good night at that point. And amazingly, you know, the fighter's instinct was to try and get up, but the legs had just betrayed him.
Well, Korobov would like to start fast and get Andy Lee fighting off the ropes as much as he can. He's got to be careful of that right hook of Andy Lee. But this guy is dedicating this fight to his late Russian trainer Nagyin, is Matt Korobov. So here we go. They're both in black trunks. Andy Lee with his back to you. To the left of the screen is Matt Korobov. Korobov has the white stripe down the side of his trunk, so that'll help you out. You don't know the fighters. Lee, the taller of the two guys, slouched over just a bit.
I saw the great Irish former champion Barry McGuigan tweeting out his best wishes for Andy Lee here tonight.
Yeah, and then we had a report from somebody in Cork that they're all watching the fight down there in Ireland. That's on the opposite side where County Limerick is. But as a matter of fact, Andy Lee lives in Dublin right now, which is on the east coast of Ireland. He was brought up in the west.
Andy Lee is coming off a fight in which he scored one of the most amazing KOs with about one of those. He was behind a fighter, John Jackson, the son of Julian Jackson,
who's a huge puncher
and who floored Andy, I mean, bad in the first round. But in the 5th round of that fight, Andy Lee with an amazing little right hook that traveled maybe 6 inches, Colonel, knocked him out, and I mean out.
Cold, yeah.
It was an amazing shot.
This is a bit of a chess match here in the early going because they both respect each other's power. Even though Korobov only has 13 knockouts, and most of his KOs come as a accumulation of punches, where Andy Lee does possess the one-punch knockout power. Lee to the left of your screen now.
Many of Korobov's fights are chess matches, and that ends up working to his advantage. Because he's a very patient fighter, and he's looking for a way to figure you out. The guy that beats him, I think, is going to have to put some stuff on him quick.
Andy cracked him with a left-hand power shot that time. And again, he's very dangerous with both hands as Andy Lee, with the right hook and the left hand, which is a power shot for both southpaws. You know, it's funny, when you look at two southpaws, they look like orthodox fighters in there. Andy Lee gets off first, but you see him chopping the top of his head. He was tired of Korobov whacking him behind the head when they're in the clinches. Tough guys. He tries to go downstairs, and he's countered by Korobov coming in.
Lee thinks because of his success with that right hook that he had with John Jackson, and an earlier fight as well with Carl Daniels, which he knocked him out with almost the same punch, that Korobov will be looking for that punch tonight. He says, I may need something else to beat him beside that.
The jab is the key. You got to double that jab up, okay? Jab is the key. The left hand to right that pocket is really, really good, okay?
Charles Mooney speaking.
Every time you throw your jab, he's going to counter bad. But when you throw a combination, you can't stand it.
Charles himself a former Olympian. Now we're on the other side with Andy Lee and his crowd. Adam Booth, David Caldwell, Richard Towers, and Jonathan Hill.
Take a look at first round action. Nothing really scintillating, but some good work there by Korobov as they got in close.
Korobov landed just a little bit more, especially when they were on the inside. I gave Korobov that round, but it's a close round. All right, here we go. This is round number 2. This is scheduled for 12 for the WBO Middleweight Championship of the World. Matt Korobov ranked number 1, the highest available for the vacant title given up by Quillen. There's the number 4 ranked Andy Lee. So Andy finds himself in a great position here to try to win a world title.
And Andy feels that the caliber of the opposition that he has faced is far superior than what Korobov has faced, and feels that it will definitely give him an edge in here tonight.
And again, you know, we talked about the chess match, and that's what it is at this stage. Both guys respect each other. Korobov looks to me to be stronger sometimes the way he fights on the inside, throwing those punches. But Andy Lee, like Rich said, you know, he can pop you with that right hook of his, and it is a hook for the southpaw. In about 6 inches, he can drop a man, as he did against Julian Jackson's son, John, last time out. That fight was in June. And that's after, as you also pointed out, after being dropped pretty severely himself in the first round.
Korobov, I give him credit for maintaining his drive and patience. I think at some points his progress was not as fast as he had hoped, and maybe not as fast as Top Rank had thought when they first assigned him at the beginning. And he was fighting a lot of those fights at 4 o'clock in the afternoon on big cards.
But, you know,
But he kept at it.
You know, early in his career, he had you know, some fatigue problems and in the early fights, and his team now has him in better condition. He's a cross trainer. He swims a lot now, and he's taking his nutrition real serious, and so he's a stronger fighter right now.
Yeah, and he admits, he goes, look, there were some tough times, but I always knew it would happen for me.
Yeah, he wasn't impatient about it, so he told us when we talked to him yesterday. And he thinks he's right where he should be at age 31, fighting for a world title on the big stage in Las Vegas, Nevada. Right now, I think he's outboxing Andy Lee to this point in the second round. And he taps him with that right hook, but that isn't the one that drops people. Andy's very wide-eyed. You know, he looks like he knows exactly what he wants to do with this guy, but he just hasn't been able to get off first yet.
Yeah, they're still kind of probing.
Closing seconds now of the second round. I think Andy's let a couple of rounds slip away. Not big rounds, but nonetheless, he's down a couple. Tony Weeks, who will be refereeing our main event of the evening, the Timothy Bradley-Diego Chavez fight, which comes up after Matt Korobov and Andy Lee do battle for this WBO middleweight championship. We moved to round number 3. I thought Korobov won the first 2 rounds, just boxing a little bit more and landing a little bit more than Andy Lee has landed. Not big rounds, but just a little bit busier.
You know, as I look at the two fighters, it's kind of that odd dynamic, Colonel, where Korobov to me looks much stronger of the two, but if you're looking for one-punch power, it's that skinny guy Lee who probably has quite an edge.
It's funny how guys with the long striated muscles are able to generate the punching power, as opposed to guys, well, not that Korobov is a big bulky sort of guy, but he does look stronger at this stage. But he's got very powerful shoulders too.
Right.
Christina, you spent some time with Korobov. What's your take so far?
Yeah, I was able to talk to both of them this week, and I asked Matt, you know, you tend to look like uninterested in some of your fights or even get a little bit tired, and Charles Mooney agreed with me, but he said he's going to rise to the level in this fight, being that it's for a world championship fight. And I think for Andy Lee, I talked to him too, and he said the last fight at 154, he really did feel emancipated before that fight. This fight, he's much more comfortable at the middleweight at 160. He's won his last 5 fights since the first title opportunity loss against Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. So he said this fight against Matt is coming at the perfect time for him.
Chavez Jr. could have weighed 180 for that fight. So
seriously,
I mean, he was a couple of divisions higher because Chavez, you know, really has to work to get his weight down, and then he immediately rehydrates and puts on as much as 17, 18 pounds overnight.
Yeah, and I, in the dressing room, went and got the weights for this fight because I was curious at how much each guy would come up from the 160. Korobov weighed in today at 174. Andy Lee only 167.5. So
it's
almost
15
a 10,
pounds, yeah,
15 pounds more, and almost a 8-pound difference between the two, with Korobov coming in at 174.
Andy got off with a solid left-hand power shot that time. Now he's loaded up a couple of punches in a row. We're in round 3, and it's time for Andy to open up a little bit more and let Korobov know this guy's here to fight. Andy looks like he wants to force the fight a little bit more now, trying to get off first against Matt.
Well, I think he should be busier than Matt, and that's going to be the best thing for him. But he still keeps looking, and he's kind of probing. How do I get to him? Figuring it out.
Andy caught him with a decent shot, and then all of a sudden Matt gets off about 6 punches in a row. What are you giving that round to, my friend?
I think Korobov had the edge. That was a nice punch right at the end of the round for Andy Lee, but I thought that Korobov had the edge.
Andy had about a 20-second period of time in the third minute of that round where he did well, and other than that, I thought Korobov outboxed him for most of the round. I've given Korobov the first 3, not big rounds, but it doesn't make any difference.
The key to the whole thing. Thank you. He don't realize that you have a devastating hook. Okay? Remember, you got to sit down this way.
You can see Adam Booth telling Andy Lee, relax, relax. And this is a very experienced trainer who's worked with Groves and David Hay over in Britain.
All right, here we go. This is round number 4. The Colonel Bob Sheridan here with Rich Murata, Christina Poncher, our staff of techs working with us. Wendy Cohen at ringside helping us out here. And in the ring, Matt Korobov to the left of your screen. And to the right of your screen, Andy Lee, ranked number 4 by the WBO. Matt Korobov, the number 1 ranked guy. He was supposed to fight Peter Quillen for the championship, and Quillen decided to give it up.
Yeah, some of Quillen's decisions, I think, are quite mysterious,
to say the least. I have to talk to Dan Raphael to get it all straight as to what these guys do and how this all developed, you know. And when he was telling me the story about Peter Quillen, I said, what was he thinking of? Who knows? But that doesn't make any difference because the championship is right here before us. Matt Korobov to the right of your screen is out in front of Andy Lee unofficially to this point. And we're in the 4th round. Andy's got to turn it up a whole lot more.
I think Korobov would like the fight to be a little closer range. If it's inside, he really felt he would have an advantage. He felt that he was a better infighter for 1, and that he was stronger for 2. And so they might be able to manhandle Lee a little bit if the fight turned into an inside fight. Lee does not want that to happen.
Every once in a while, though, when Korobov comes in, he throws punches with, you know, a real ferocious style. And Lee continues. You use the term probe, and I like that too, Rich, because that's what he still appears to be doing, is just probing with the right hand. We haven't seen too many of those hooks, and as I say that, he throws the right hook, but doesn't really plant it deep in the skull of Matt Korobov.
Yeah, I don't see a definitive strategy emanating from Andy Lee yet.
Well, Andy's not landing his jab. He's like feigning with his jab, constantly feigning with his jab, and not really stepping up and landing it and using it as a weapon. That time, Korobov does what Evander Holyfield did so well, and that's parry the jab off with his own punch. Sneaky uppercut by Korobov as Andy Lee was coming in. Andy Lee wants to fight the fight from the outside, and Korobov would like to come inside, and he does just enough to, on my score sheet, be winning every round. Now, Korobov hasn't thrown a lot of punches in this round, but he still has landed more than what Andy has, in my opinion. And there's a nice stiff right jab that snapped the head back of Andy. Andy loaded up the left hand, but it fell short. So just every round, Korobov is just slightly out working and landing a few more shots than is Andy Lee. Beautiful evening in Las Vegas, Nevada. The lights on bright here on a Saturday evening leading up to Christmas. We got the National Finals Rodeo going on, another fight across town.
Combinations nice and smooth.
Now watch Korobov. I talked about the aggressiveness and how ferocious he is.
Good jab, comes in, gets close, gets the distance he wants, and Lee, not wanting it to be inside, immediately tied him up. But as you see, he's within that punching range where he wants to be, Korobov.
Andy Lee's expression hasn't changed throughout the fight. I mean, he doesn't look bewildered as to what's going on in the fight, but he's just, in my opinion, not winning any rounds. So here we go as we move to round number 5 in the scheduled 12-round affair for the WBO middleweight championship of the world. Want to win a world title, it's time for fire to get under the seat of my Irish friend Andy Lee. You know, where I lived in Ireland was just one county away from Limerick. I lived in County Clare.
I did not know that.
Big rivalries in the sport of hurling, which is the national sport of Ireland.
Colonel, I'm still discovering new things about you every time we work.
Andy Lee with his name on the front of his black trunks. That Korobov with a white trim down the side of his. I've got Korobov winning ever so slightly the first 4 rounds of this fight. Just a little bit more aggressiveness, a little bit more often than Andy Lee. So it's time for Andy to pick it up. And I thought he did in the last round, Rich.
And that's the odd thing, though, about scoring in boxing. You can have every round close, and if the same guy is just barely eking out the round, as you total them up, it looks like a one-sided fight on paper when you total up those the numbers. When it hasn't been. I mean, there has not been a one-sided round yet.
No, they're very close rounds, and this Korobov again, you know, landing one of the more telling blows in the round, and sometimes that's enough. Because, you know, the professional judge has to try to find something in the close round that he can give it to the one man or the other. Because anybody can score the easy 10-9 round, the clear 10-9 round.
Something to look for tonight is the fact that Andy Lee will at times lunge in, lean in, and it might be there an uppercut, might be there an opening for the uppercut for Korobov when Lee is bending down like that and leaning in. If he lunges in, you may see Korobov come up from downstairs.
And Andy does have a tendency sometimes to lunge in.
But Lee's starting to jab now. That's a pretty good jab he's throwing out there.
You got to catch a piece of him, though. Remember we talked about, you know, at least touch him, you know, hit an arm, hit his shoulder, hit something when you throw that jab out there. That one went and smothered between the gloves of Korobov. But Andy looks like he's trying to get a little bit closer now, right. You know, his positioning.
And he's putting it out there. He's putting the punches out there, even if they're not all in. And you know, the previous rounds, it looked to me like I'm trying to figure out what to do. In this round, I think he had an idea of what he wanted to do.
Another one of those very close rounds, but I got to lean towards Korobov.
Trying to throw a punch, okay? He's trying to throw a KO punch, okay? We're not worried about that because we can see everything he throw, okay? Get it back. Get it back. Slow it down, get it back. We going to our 6th round, right? Slow it down, get it back, baby.
Hey, Richard, the bottle with no label.
More urgency in Andy's corner, and there should be from Adam Booth.
Good, right?
Little slit in the left eyelid of Andy Lee now. Seemed to be a big problem, but we'll see how it goes. The two southpaws go at it now in the 6th round. Korobov out in front in the fight unofficially. Very close rounds, but Korobov just working a little bit more, landing a few more shots than is Andy Lee.
I thought Lee had the edge. I'm going to disagree with you on that last round, Colonel. I thought Lee had a little bit of an edge in that last round.
Well, that's good. That's good. I'm glad. If you think he won that round, that's good that we get it out there because it was a close round, and that's kind of the way that Korobov has, you know, won the first 4 rounds, and I gave him the 5th round, but I expect that the judges could be split on maybe 1 or 2 of these rounds. Korobov puts some pressure on him. Andy spins him around.
Stop. Step back, clean.
Kenny lets him go. Working themselves out.
Korobov finally seems to have found the trainer, Charles Mooney, though, whom he feels completely comfortable with. Oh, nice left hand.
Oh, and Korobov could whack with the left hand. And here comes Andy Lee in now. So Korobov looked like he landed him, and watch this. Look at these shots. And he stops the fight. Kenny Bayless stops the fight. You know why? Too many unanswered punches. Andy Lee is a brand new WBO middleweight champion of the world.
It came out of nowhere. Just out of nowhere, he landed the one big punch that wobbled Korobov.
And right before that, it looked like Andy had been hurt. And then all of a sudden, Korobov gets whacked, and Andy Lee swarms him to the point where Kenny Bayless didn't want to see him take any more flush punches, and that he couldn't defend himself. Andy Lee. How about that for all of my friends watching in Ireland? Andy Lee, the WBO middleweight champion of the world.
This guy has had numerous fights where when things look darkest for him, he somehow pulls it out.
Oh, he gets hit.
There's the right hook again. The amazing telling punch, the right hook of Andy Lee. Now this one wasn't a one-punch knockout as he had done to Carl Daniels and to John Jackson, but he just went in and he threw what it looks like maybe at least 20 punches there, huh? Colonel, before the referee Kenny Bayless stopped the fight. There it is, that right hook again.
Almost dropped him, but look at his legs. And now he realizes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 unanswered punches, 15 of them really hard. Kenny Bayless could do no more than to stop that.
Describe